So hello everyone, in this Python tutorial we will use PyCharm IDE to create a simple Cipher application. And if you don't know what Cipher is, it's simply speaking, it's a very primitive encryption technique that uses something called shift number to replace letters based on their order in the alphabet. As you can see in this image, you can replace the alphabet based on its order. For example, if you want to replace A with X, you will give a shift number that is equal maybe 27. So, and for all the other letters, it will be the same as well. If you just want to see it in if you just want to check how it is working, you can just try this website, encrypt.com. There is a very user-friendly interface for the Cipher, and here you can write whatever you want, hello world, and you will just get, based on your shift numbers that you set, you will get your encrypted message. So for example, if we set it to 2 or 1, so the H become an I and the E become an F, and etc. So how to do that in Python? So here I'm starting with an empty Python file, and I'm using PyCharm, which is a very popular IDE, and the community version of it is free, but you can also use any kind of other IDEs like Sublime Text, or you can use some online Python interpreters like Riblet and other free tools. There are so many IDEs. Even for if you have an Android, you can find apps that can interpret Python code on your phone. So many ways to do it. So anyway, I started here with a new project, and I name it Cipher tutorial. Here you will start with the main. First of all, usually when we make text-based Python applications, or in other words, this application that looks like the command prompt, they have no interface, no graphical interface, we usually use something called ASCII art. And ASCII art, maybe it's not functional to the app, but it looks really cool. So first of all, we need to create some logo using the ASCII art. And in this case, we will define a variable. We will call it art, and we will check here the 3 quotation marks are just a container for strings, and here we can look for any ASCII art generator, and for example we can use this one, and we can use the style that we need. So we can just keep trying until we have something cool. Okay, anything is okay. So maybe here we say Cipher Cipher app. Not very cool, so let's try another one. This one is good, so we will just copy and paste it here. And if you use PyCharm, you will find that once the text is more than the width of the window, it becomes like this. So you can just press here, right click, and soft wrap. So now it's kind of distorted, but it should show up okay in the runtime. So let's try to print this art, and let's run. Okay, there's a wrong indentation here. So it was printed correctly, Cipher app. Okay, so now we have printed the art. So the second thing we need to do is to define the function that will encrypt the input that the user gives. Okay, so to define a function, we type def, and let's call this function the Cipher. Let's call it Cipherman, funny enough. And this function, Cipherman, will have 3 inputs, 3 variables that we can change. In this case, we have the prompt, which is the input text that user inputs. It will also have the shift number, which is the number by which we displace the letters in the alphabet. And the third thing is code or decode. So this means that we want this application to be able to encrypt and decrypt text messages. So we also needed to use the algorithm in reverse. So it uses a negative shift number when we have an already encrypted message and we want to decipher it. Okay, and then we put a colon, and okay, this is our function inputs and name. So now we need to define another variable, which is a final message that is generated. So let's define a new variable called final message. And this final message, when we start the application, it will just be an empty string. Why do we use an empty string? Because this will be filled afterwards based on user input. So we can't use any initial value in this definition, in this variable. Okay, so now we want to do another thing. So we want to check if user input is a text, is an encrypted text already, or it is a normal text that they need to be encrypted. So how we know that? We know that through the input code or encode or decode, because afterwards we will ask the user to input a keyword to check if they want to code or decode the following message. So usually when we have some conditional situation, we use the if statement. So here we use if code or decode, okay? If code or decode equal D. Okay, what is that? So here we say that if the value of code or decode is D, D means decode. It's a shortcut that we will ask the user to enter if they want to decode the message. If they want to encode, they will just enter E. However, in case they enter D, we want to make sure that the shift number is negative. Why? Because in this case, we can reverse the algorithm that replaces the letters, and in this case, we can turn an encrypted message into a decrypted one. So here we type that the shift number, which is the second input in the function, we want to change the value, but not replace it. So we'll just use this asterisk, which is like multiplication signal, and we will just multiply by -1. Okay, so that's it for the if statement to check if the code, if the user want to decode a message. And when you are defining a function, please make sure that the indentation is correct, because it should be under the definition of the function. If you want to check, you can just close and open, and if you close the function and found that all the below text is now invisible, so it's correctly indented. Same goes for if. So here I see that maybe, okay, I think it's correctly indented, because for if statement as well you need to indent the text under. Okay, so now we need to define the algorithm that will replace the letters, and the user by default will enter a message which consists of a number of letters, maybe numbers or symbols. So we need the algorithm to look at this message letter by letter, so that we can replace the order of letters individually. So when we want to loop through a message or a string to check every letter in this string, we usually use the for loop. So here we will say for letter, which is a variable that we need in prompt, and prompt is the input that the user will give to the application. So for each letter in prompt, we want to change the order of this letter. However, we need first of all, we need to add a list of the letters in the alphabet. So we need this list to compare the index of the original alphabet to the index of the entered letter, and then we need to replace this index. So we need something like this. I pasted here, and here is the list. So the list is called dict, and it's just a very simple list with square brackets, and inside the brackets there are the full list of the alphabet from 1 to 26. And you can find a list like this ready-made on the internet, so you don't have to type them manually. So now let's go back to the for loop, and in the for loop we want to check if the letter input by user is within the dict list or not. For example, if the user will most probably use spaces to enter the text, so spaces are not included in this dictionary or the alphabet list. So in this case we want to exclude it from the change, or because otherwise we will have an error for our for loop. So let's use an if statement again. So if letter in dict which means if the letter that we are comparing, each letter, is inside the list that is called dict, what should we do in this case? Then we should define a new variable called order, and this order will be equal to the dictionary list, the alphabet list. However, we will check the index of the letter. So if the user enters A, so this function, this command will go to the list, and it will look for the dict list, which is this list, and then it will look for the index here, and then it will put the letter A and then begin to compare each letter. So it will find A here, so it will replace the A with 1 because the index number of A in this list is 1. So it will just do this, and after this we need to define a new order because this is the original order. We don't need it, we need to change it. So we will define a new variable called new order, and the new order will be equal order, and we will add the shift number. So it may be confusing now because the input variables by user are not yet defined, but it is kind of easier in some ways to define the function first and then use the variables in this function to change them to the input. So I just want to check if there is an error here. Reformat, okay, so you can use the reformat, show contests, remove assignment target. This doesn't need any change. So now we can change the result, and we are still in the if statement. So in this case we need to add the new order, which is a new letter. We need to add it to the final message. So we will type final message plus equals the letter, because now the letter will change. Okay, okay, we need here not letter, this is wrong. So we need to add from the dictionary, we need to add the new order. So the new order will be a number. So for example, if the new order, so here it's the order is a dictionary index number, depends on the letter. So if it is A, it will be 1, and then the new order will be 1 plus the shift number. If the shift number is also 1, then the new order is 2, and then the final message we will add here, we will add 2. So 2 is the index number, which is B, so we will add a B to the final message, which replaces the A, which is the original letter, and we will do this for each and every letter in the text message that is input by user. Okay, so after this we need to close the if statement, so we will say else. So if the letter is not in the dictionary, like spaces or numbers or symbols, we will just add it directly to our message. So here we will type the same thing, but we will just type letter. Why? Because it will not change. Okay, after this we want to copy the final message to the clipboard, so user can use it in the notepad or in whatever, so they don't need to go and highlight it and copy it manually. So to copy any kind of variable in Python, there are many methods, but in this case we will use the clipboard library. So we just type import clipboard, and now the clipboard library is not downloaded, so here we will just say, we'll just choose install package clipboard. So now this package will be downloaded shortly, and now it's lit, which means that we can use it. Okay, under import we will enter clipboard. So now we are calling the package, and we need to copy. What to copy? We need to copy the final message, not one letter but all the letters, because remember this for loop will keep repeating until all the letters entered by the users are replaced by their shift number. Okay, so we also need to give a message to the user to make sure that their inquiry is finished. So here we will, and we have two situations: if it is an encrypted message or if it is a decrypted message. I mean, for the input of the user. So if code or decode is D, which means if it is a decode message, if it is an encrypted message that we need to decode, then in this case we will print And here if means that we will convert any kind of variables inside this string into a final string. So we will just type the decrypted message, the decrypted message, and we will just enter our variable here. When we use variable inside the string, we usually use the curly brackets, and we will check here the final message was copied to the clipboard. Okay, nice. And we need to close the quotation mark. Actually, if you say here, oh no, but usually when you use PyCharm, it can really help you to debug your code even before you run it. So here we can type else if code or decode equal e, but we don't need that because otherwise we can just type else and print. And here we need to use exactly the same message, but the encrypted message is final image was copied to the clipboard. And that's all for our function. So if you see here, this is the function, and it has all the inputs and all the algorithms that we need to use. But if we run the program right now, nothing will happen because we don't have any kind of input by user. So we now need to start using this function within an array of inputs by user. So we need to go out of this function, and first we need to let our code, our application keep running until the user doesn't want any kind of inquiries. So to do this, we usually use the while function. The while command usually will keep the underlying code working indefinitely, but we don't want it to run indefinitely. We want it to run until the user say, I don't need any more inquiries. So to do this, we need a condition. So let's define a new variable here, and let's say the new variable is called exit now, and exit now by default is has a value of false. So it is a Boolean variable, so it's either true or false. When it is false, the code will keep running all the time, will keep repeating. But when it's true, and it will be true when the user input no to a question that says if you have any more inquiries. Okay, so while this is a function for the repetition, while the exit now is not true, so while not exit now. Okay, don't forget the colon. Okay, now we need to define the array of variables that user will input. So what is the first thing that the user will import, will tell the application? They will tell the application if they need to code or decode. So let's define a new variable called code or decode input, and this variable will equal an input, which means that this is a string that is generated by user, and we will just type here encrypt or decrypt question mark. And okay, let's give type E or D, and we will use the \n to make sure that input by the user will be in a new line, so it makes it more elegant when we run the code. Okay, and now after the user select whether encode or decode, we will ask them to enter their message. So we will say here a new variable equals, which name of variable is message input, and we will define this message as an input, which says type your message. Okay, semicolon and \, and we want to convert all the characters in this message into lower case so that it doesn't confuse the dictionaries that we have here, because all these are just lowercase, so we don't want to confuse our code. Okay, so that's the second input. The third input, as you may know, is a shift number. So what will be the shift number that the user want to use? So we will now we will create a new variable called shift prompt equals, and in this case the shift prompt is an integer. Actually it's a number, so we can't define it as a string, otherwise it will not work. So to make sure that whatever number the user use is turned into an integer, we type int brackets, and then we type our input variable here. So the input, and say type the shift number colon, and same use the \. Okay, and now we may have a problem if the user enters a very big integer, for example 30 or 40. What will happen in this case is that the algorithm will go through this alphabet, so it will count like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and it will go to 30, but the last index here is 26. or maybe 25 if we start from 0. So after 25 it will give an error because the shift number is out of range. It has no index inside the list. So we need to process this number to make some mathematical operation to this number so that it's always turned into an integer that is less than 26. And to do this we use the modulus operator. And modulus operator is something like the division operator, but it gets the remainder of a division operation. It tells us if there is a remainder to a division operation or not. And it's very useful to check for even and odd numbers. It's useful to check for prime numbers, and in our case it's also useful to check for it's useful to change the integer to be an integer that is within 26, whatever the original input is. So we will type the same shift in prompt, and we want to change the value, so that's why we type the same variable twice, because the first line will be executed, which is the input by the user, and then we will tell the application to set a new value based on the older one. So here it will be shift prompt divided by, or in this case, the modulus. And what is the maximum number that we can have? Yes, it's 26. So mod 26. So in this case, we guarantee that there will not be any errors, out of range errors in the code. And now we have all the inputs, so we need to call the function. Call the function is to execute it. So to execute a function, we just type its name. So here we have the name, Cipherman, and we will call Cipherman, but we need to define the variables in this case, because we have here 3 variables, and this is like the vanilla version of the function, so we need to replace these values with actual values. So in this case, let's just copy it. Okay. Oh, we have 2 brackets, we don't need that. Okay, so in this case, the prompt equal and the shift number equal and the code or decode equal. So what do you think we will type here? We will just type the new variables that are entered by the user. So the prompt here should be the message input. Okay, and the shift number will be the shift prompt. Okay, and the code or decode will be code or decode input. Yes, and now the function is called. However, if we run the code right now, it will keep running indefinitely because we have the while loop here. But we want, after we get the function, after we call the function, and the last thing in the function is to print this message, we need to print a new message. So we will define a variable called post prompt, and it will be an input which asks the user to, do you need another query? Yes, type y or n \n. And in this case, we also sometimes the user may use capital letters, so just in case we need to change this input into a lowercase. And we will tell the application, so if this variable post prompt equals n, so the user doesn't have any more inquiries, what should you do? You should change this variable into true, and if it is true, then the while loop will stop. So we will just exit now. In this case, we'll change its value to true. And in this case, we will stop the loop, and also we will print the message called maybe app closed or app terminated. App terminated. Thanks. And yes, so that's pretty much it. So around 40 lines, not so much. So let's now try to run our code and see if it actually works. So make sure that you are running the main Python file, press run. So first we have the ASCII art, looks good. And now we have the input, the first input, encrypt or decrypt. So I will type encrypt. And let's type our message. So I will just type hello world and an exclamation mark. Press enter, type the shift number. Let's say shift the order of the letters by 5. So A will be maybe E. We will see. Okay, 5. And here we can see that the encrypted message MJQQT beta, it's very it really looks encrypted, so it was copied to the clipboard. So let's check, let's open the notepad and here paste. Whoa, it's working very well. So we have our encrypted message in the notepad without much work. Okay, so as we expected, it asks us to type yes or no for another inquiry. So we will just say yes, we want to, in this case, we want to decrypt this message. Okay, so we will say decrypt, and our message will just paste the original encrypted message, and you have to know the shift number. So in this type of encryption, the shift number is like the key to the lock. So in this case, we know that the shift number is 5, but the algorithm will run it as -5. So it will replace the order in reverse. And here we go. The decrypted message is hello world, and it should be copied to the clipboard by now. So let's try here. It's working. Hello world. Okay. And it asks us if we need another inquiry. I'll just type no. And we will find that the app is terminated. Thanks. Oh, I should add an S here. So yes, thanks. Okay. So that's it for the Cipher Cipher. It's a really good application for beginners to know how to use different types of variables, how to use lists, how to define a simple function, how to define an if statement inside the function, and also how to loop through the user input letter by letter, how to use the import as a clipboard package in Python, how to print messages, how to use the while not loop, the while loop based on some conditional variable, how to ask for inputs, and how to call a function and change the input variables into the new variables that we have based on the user input. So it's a very simple application, but it's still very rich for beginners because it kind of covers many topics at the same time without being too much complicated. So that's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.